Hi everybody, I'm Bill Campbell and welcome once again to Chicago. And almost exactly a month ago, something phenomenal happened. We're going to talk about it today. It's called One Young World Summit, and we've got two Chicago ambassadors who are here. I'm happy to welcome to Chicago Sarah Bieber, who is an ambassador. Good to have you here, Sarah.
Thank you.
And Michelle Underwood, another ambassador.
Thank you.
Next to Michelle is Eric Edge, who is the Chief Communications Officer for Euro RSCG Worldwide. Good to have you here, Eric. Eric, let me ask you, if you could kind of set the context, what happened the 8th and the 10th of February is pretty phenomenal for young leaders under the age of 25.
Yeah. Well, I think the thought is David Jones, who's our global CEO, and the head of our UK group, Kate Robertson, came together 2 years ago and said, you know, with the mass amount of consumers saying that a company needs to represent something more than profit, what do we do as a corporation to address that?
And you're an advertising.
And we're an advertising agency, but really this is much bigger than advertising. Yeah. It's not an advertising thing. And we said, but we're a corporation, a global corporation. What can we do to use some of our expertise and skills to help better the greater good? And so the idea that they had in their head was One Young World. And so 2 years passed, and that idea went to paper, and that paper went to an event, and it became a reality.
And a month ago it happened.
Exactly.
In London.
In London, exactly.
And countries from every part of planet Earth were represented.
Yep. So we had nearly 1,000 delegates for this inaugural summit from more than 110 countries. And that was really the essence of it. We wanted to make sure that the under 25s could come together, they could have a voice, but it wouldn't be a voice from any one region. It would be a voice from as many countries as possible to address the big issues.
So Michelle and Sarah, you are voices that represented the Chicago area. What was the experience like? What were the topics, and what happened when you found out that you were going to be one of the young people from the United States, almost only 50 from the entire country that were going to be there?
We were so excited to get to be delegates to One Young World. We had like 2 weeks to prepare and packed our bags and our plug converters and our cell phones because we have to be connected, of course. Right. And we had 3 days of summits and sessions with 700 plus of our peers, and we covered a lot of different topics, from global health to the environment to media and its power, global business.
Positive politics.
Yeah, and young leadership. Like, we had an entire session about the potential for young leadership in the world, and all of these issues were kind of decided on by us because they did a global youth study previously. So 15,000 25 and under from around the world voted on what are the most important issues to us today. So they designed the sessions around that.
And some of the luminary figures in leadership worldwide were there. Tell us a little bit about who were some of these leaders that weren't there as leaders but really kind of facilitators for your conversations.
Yep, well, Desmond Tutu was there, and Kofi Annan.
Wow.
The soccer player.
Clarence Seedorf is a famous soccer player.
Wow.
And Bob Geldof. We had, and Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate. We had a lot of big names in the world there, but they were listening to us. They were asking us for answers.
For you as individuals, but as a group, to know that you could attract the attention, the genuine, honest attention of these kind of leaders in the world today, getting you ready for the roles that you'll be assuming?
Well, when I read the list, Kofi Annan, Desmond Tutu, Muhammad Yunus, I thought, oh my God, how informational, I'm going to learn so much from them. But then all the delegates got on stage and they were speaking and Kofi Annan was listening, and I was just so shocked to see how genuinely interested they were in what we had to say. And they kept repeating, we're looking to you, you're the next generation, we want to hear the fresh perspective from the youth of the world, and they are going to take what we said to them and back to their positions of power and hopefully spread our message and say, this is what the youth of the world are telling me, and we need to listen to them because they have a lot to say.
Sarah, you recently graduated from college. How does it make you feel to be able to say, I was at a first event for young leaders under 25 Did it change your life at all?
Yeah, it was amazing. I think that it was empowering and inspiring. Those were the two words that I would use to describe it. Just being in the same room as, 700, 1,000 delegates who all share the same keen interest in global issues as I do. I'd never experienced that before, so I wouldn't have traded it for anything. It was amazing.
Did you have a chance, as you've reflected now as we're taping the show, it's only a couple of weeks after you got back home, did you feel a change in your life?
Yeah. I mean,
You guys look at each other.
you get
Yeah,
back to
Bill.
Chicago, and we got off the plane, and I felt like a whole new way of looking at the world. You wouldn't expect that just 3 days of hearing these issues and talking to people would completely change the way that you think about things, but it puts it in perspective. Like, I build a little time in my day, every day now, into what I'm doing for One Young World.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that and how you've changed and what the world is going to be like now that this has happened. We're going to do that when Chicagoan continues right after these messages. Go away. Welcome back to Chicagoing, where today we're talking about One Young World Summit. And with two of the ambassadors here, I want to ask you, Sarah, to kind of describe for me, as you reflect on the experience that you had, what it's like to recognize that there are so many folks around the world who are like you.
I think the best part about the conference was that feeling, and more specifically, knowing that the youth today are not willing to let violence divide us. And one of the most powerful moments in the session was when we had a delegate from Israel and a delegate from Palestine on the stage, sort of sharing their really painful stories about how they each had family members, they each lost family members to the opposing side. And it was just a very real, symbolic representation of what the conference is, and it's that these two people can face each other and talk about things instead of using violence. And that was something I think the conference helped to bring out in all of us when we realized that we're all sort of on the same level here, and that we don't want to fight with each other, and we want to get to know each other and understand where everyone's coming from, learn new perspectives.
Well, that
Yeah.
really is powerful.
We were all talking about how proud we were to be delegates from our own countries, Jordan, Bahrain, Palestine, but then at the end of it, everyone kept saying, but we're global citizens, we're global citizens. And so little things like the Palestinian and Israeli delegates talking to one another really helped us connect on that level.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, so we were talking a little bit before, when you first arrived in London, everybody kind of was grouped together from their own country, and then that just changed, didn't it?
To see over 100 countries, you don't know what to expect when you meet someone from a country you've never visited or you've only heard about on the news. And a lot of the delegates from Africa did a really great job of bringing up the positive aspects of what's happening in that continent, and they're going forward and forming their own One Young World Africa Ambassadors Group because they want to get out there with the positive news that's happening there, not just the expected things that you hear. And they're all doing amazing things in their countries, and so to see them and meet them face to face put a face to the issues that we might not pay attention to every day.
Eric, when ERSCG started this idea, and just watched it unfold, because there weren't a lot of projected outcomes. This is what's going to happen. It's just, let's try and see what happens. Looking back now, how was that process, and seeing how it's changed so many young lives, not changed them, but allowed them really to unfold in ways that possibly were not even thought of?
No, I think it's incredible. I mean, to see that idea, like I said, become a reality, and then to see once we were there, the reality kind of taken over by the young delegates that were there was absolutely amazing. It could have gone any which way, for various reasons.
Sure.
You have 100 10 different countries represented. You have 1,000 young people in the room
under
who
the
may
age of
not agree.
25.
Yeah, all opinionated, all the future leaders. You don't know how that's going to come together. You have counselors who are very, very well known and respected in the world, and so you put all that together, and that's a formula for great success. Or a formula but it ended up being very successful, and I really do. I know we're talking. I really do think the crux of it was, and thanks to social media and how we utilize social media in that space.
Give us, as those who didn't have the privilege of being there, an idea how social media played an integral role in this and moving forward. What does it mean to us?
Yeah, I'll give you kind of the basic, because Sarah and Michelle experienced it, but the reality is so we started the entire summit via a YouTube competition where people from around the world could submit their video talking about why they should be a delegate to One Young World.
Wow.
Then we went to Facebook and said, all right, if you're interested in One Young World, join the Facebook group and submit your application. So we've got thousands and thousands of applications there. We've reviewed those, selected the very best from the 110 countries that we were able to bring to One Young World this time, and that was how it began. But all communications with the delegates were through Facebook and social media. The fundamental communication for the delegates at the event was social media. And that's the platform that's allowed this to be possible. I don't know if One Young World could have happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
As successfully.
And social media is, the telephone of the future. It really is. And you guys are key participants in that transition. What does that kind of stuff make you feel?
Well, they call us the generation that grew up digital, and it really has changed the way that we communicate to one another. They kept having this buzzword of the older generation was always broadcasted to, like television broadcasts at them and movies broadcasts at them, the papers at them. But we're the generation that's more about a conversation. So we're interacting with our media socially. So that's completely changed the way that we interpret news or interpret interpersonal relationships. So they wanted our point of view on how to take social media into the future. And I was so excited that a Facebook addiction could pay off. I mean, we are the generation that started 6 years ago, first Facebook account, and somehow Facebook is no longer frivolous. I mean, you look to the example of Oscar Morales.
Yeah.
He was one of the counselors at One Young World, and he's a 33-year-old electrician from Colombia, and he decided to say something, do something about the oppression they were feeling from the guerrilla terrorist group FARC. So he got on Facebook and started a movement that eventually became 15 million people protesting against this terrorist organization. 15 million people.
In a matter of months.
Can you imagine how big that Facebook invite was? But he was a delegate, and he came with us, and he went out salsa dancing with us one night. I mean, he was just this guy who knew how to take advantage of what was given him and make his voice heard globally.
Wow. Well, we're going to hear more of your voices. We're going to do that when Chicagoing continues right after this. Folks, don't go away. That is... Welcome back to Chicago, and today we have the privilege of talking with two ambassadors from One Young World Summit, which was held this time last month for the very first time in history. And Sarah and Michelle, what does this mean for Chicago, and what roles you can play and who you are evolving to be as young leaders of tomorrow?
Well, we were sent as delegates from Chicago, so we had to write an essay and talk about what it means to bring back these messages from One Young World to Chicago. And myself, I started a nonprofit theater company in the city with some friends, so I want to bring that message to them, because part of our efforts is reaching out to the community and having community talkbacks with the issues that are affected on stage and bringing that directly to the humans who represent those kind of issues. So another way that I'm going to bring that is World Dignity Day. And World Dignity Day was brought up at One Young World, and I wanted to bring that back to Chicago. I think it's a day that we should probably bring into our schools and bring into our arts programs and talk about, because dignity is more than just a word. It's a way of looking at people. So if you have more of a concept of dignity for a population or for an individual, it changes the way you think about poverty or healthcare or politics. Yeah,
politics.
It affects every issue, because dignity is our humanity. And so October 20th, 2009 was Dignity Day last year, and it'll be around the same time again this year. And Sarah and I want to do something in Chicago with Dignity Day.
Yeah, I think we want to, take it as high as we can. Maybe talk to the mayor, maybe have it be a day in Chicago. And, I grew up here and I went to grade school here, and I feel a strong desire to go back to my grade school and make it a dignity school. And what that means is you go and present, you're given materials and resources by the team who founded Global Dignity Day. And, you go in and sort of present, and we would present as ambassadors and sort of talk to kids at an early age, which is important, especially with something as important as having respect for yourself and others.
And as we talked a little bit earlier, it's so fitting that Chicago was the only city on planet Earth during the change of the millennia from 1999 to the year 2000, where Mayor Daley invited 2 citizens from every country on the planet to be here in Chicago over at McCormick Place. And so there's a tradition already established here for Chicago's openness to that. And I think it's a reflection of who we are as a people as we're evolving. One of the things, Eric, just the idea to allow it to become whatever it becomes was really a huge statement of faith that it's a great idea. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but it's turned out to be an amazing gamble of our unfoldment as human beings.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think one of the things that we realized, going back to the advertising piece of things, that we realized David Jones had said was, creating campaigns and work that are open source is the future. So the idea of controlling and directing where everything goes and how it should go, and you can't do that anymore. It just doesn't work as well.
Driven by fear.
Right. Yeah. But you create something that's open source and that people can adapt and adopt and evolve. In this case, under 25s could do that. One Young World has legs that I think are going to bring it years into the future.
Again, how do you two feel about having that role now? I mean, you didn't know what you were getting into on the 6th of February, and now you know. What does it feel like? What does it feel like for you, Sarah?
I feel responsible, actually. I feel a lot of responsibility to bring it back to Chicago, and also to stay in touch with all of the amazing delegates I met while there. Not just so I have somewhere to stay abroad, but so that we can talk about things and link up if we're all interested in the same cause. And the ambassador website that One Young World set up for post-conference is going to allow us to do that. But I mean, Facebook, Twitter, we're all on it, and so it's really helping us.
Then you guys really are driving the new media now. You're bringing it consciously bringing it to every place.
Yeah, because when Twitter was invented, no one could have known that it could possibly start a revolution in Iran and also tell people that I had Fruit Loops for breakfast.
It's just that open-ended, but it really is, in the example of what you guys have been doing, is pretty phenomenal. How does that connection with you change you, Michelle, from the young woman you were before you left Chicago to go to London last month?
Like she said, the responsibility and the honor that they gave us as delegates, and then the responsibility to then call us ambassadors. Like that transition of 3 days, like, thank you guys for listening. Now you're ambassadors, go and talk.
You got some work to do.
Yeah. And so hopefully next year we'll be able to come back to One Young World and tell them, well, this is what we've done and this is what needs to be done. And we're hoping to reach out to the Chicago community and recruit. Like we need more young people. So we want to recruit and tell them about what this was and what it can be.
And it's so exciting that you have that vehicle now, which 3 years ago didn't exist.
Yeah. OneYoungWorld.com. I mean, anyone that's interested could go there, and literally in the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're hoping to announce where the next One Young World will be.
Well, we're going to be watching. I want you to stay with me,
Yeah.
guys. We're going to be back with more Chicagoan coming up right after this. Don't go away. Yeah, that is just... Welcome back to Chicago. I'm really glad that you've been with us this morning. I wanted to ask Eric, now that One Young Summit has occurred, One Young World Summit has occurred, how can people find out more information? Because I'm sure watching the show there's a lot of interest.
Yeah, easily. www.oneyoungworld.com, or go to Facebook and join the group One Young World.
Well, that's pretty straightforward.
There it is.
And I want to ask Michelle, if you could pick 3 words to describe what that experience last month did for your life, what would they be?
Invigorate, motivate, and complicate.
I like that. And since you had a little bit extra time, Sarah, what would you say?
I would say unite, strengthen, and empower our generation.
Thank you for being on the show today. So glad to have you. And folks, thank you. We really appreciate your being here. Remember, it's an inside job. You decide to make it a great week. I'm Bill Campbell. So long.